The story of the Irish people begins in the misty hills of ancient Ireland. Archaeologists find traces of human settlement dating back thousands of years. These early inhabitants shaped the landscape with stone circles and burial mounds. The question of Celtic identity in Ireland is more complex than many realize. For centuries, scholars have debated whether the Irish are truly Celts. The traditional view connects Ireland to the wider Celtic world of Europe. This view highlights linguistic, artistic, and cultural similarities. Irish language shares roots with Welsh, Breton, and Gaulish languages. Ancient Irish myths preserve motifs found in other Celtic regions. Latin-style art appears in Ireland in the later Iron Age. These swirling designs suggest cultural connections across the Celtic world. Archaeology shows that Ireland was not isolated, but part of a network of trade. Metalwork and jewelry indicate influence from continental Europe. At the same time, Ireland developed unique traditions and societal structures. The Druids in Ireland had a special social role that differs from Gaulish Druids. Early Irish law systems, known as Brehon laws, are distinct from continental norms. This uniqueness makes it difficult to categorize the Irish as purely Celtic. Modern scholarship questions the blanket labeling of Ireland as Celtic. Genetic studies reveal a mix of populations over thousands of years. Migration waves from Britain, mainland Europe, and the Atlantic seaboard shaped the people. Some researchers argue that Celtic identity is more linguistic than biological. Language can spread without a complete population replacement. The earliest Irish inscriptions appear in Ogham script around 4th century AD. Ogham is unlike the scripts of continental Celtic peoples. Yet linguistic shifts suggest contact and influence with Celtic-speaking populations. The myths of the Tuatha Dé Danann echo pan-Celtic motifs, but remain uniquely Irish. These stories blend local deities, heroic cycles, and supernatural themes. Irish mythology preserves layers of pre-Celtic and Celtic influences. Historians caution against a simplistic reading of these legends as proof of Celtic identity. The famous Irish harp and knotwork designs are often cited as Celtic symbols. However, artistic styles evolve and may have multiple origins. Trade networks brought ideas and motifs from Britain and France. Celtic identity in Ireland may have been more fluid than often presented. Some scholars propose using the term Insular Celtic to describe Ireland and Britain. This distinguishes local cultures from continental Gaulish and Iberian Celts. The Irish language belongs to the Goidelic branch of Insular Celtic. Welsh and Cornish languages belong to the Brythonic branch. This linguistic split occurred early and highlights regional variation. Cultural connections continued through the centuries, despite geographic isolation. Monastic centres became repositories of knowledge in early medieval Ireland. Irish monks travelled across Europe spreading learning and art. The Book of Kells is an example of elaborate insular manuscript tradition. It combines Christian themes with intricate designs influenced by Celtic motifs. This fusion shows that Irish culture is simultaneously local and pan-European. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the Celtic revival shaped modern perceptions of Ireland. Poets and artists emphasised a shared Celtic heritage across Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Nationalist movements embraced Celtic identity as a symbol of resistance. Folklore collectors reinforced the notion of an ancient Celtic past. These romantic interpretations sometimes simplified historical realities. They often ignored archaeological and linguistic nuances. Modern historians approach the question with more caution and complexity. Ireland's history cannot be reduced to a single identity label. Ancient Ireland had multiple waves of migration and cultural influence. The arrival of the Celts in continental Europe was gradual and regionally diverse. The same is true for the Celtic influence in Ireland. Cultural diffusion occurred over centuries, rather than through conquest. Genetic landscape of Ireland reflects these layered influences. Studies show continuity with Mesolithic, A Neolithic population later Bronze and Iron Age migrations introduced new genetic and cultural elements. Celtic-speaking populations may have contributed partially to the mix. Ireland's population history is a tapestry of continuity and change. Linguistic evidence suggests that Celtic languages arrived in Ireland around 500 BC. Before this, people likely spoke pre-Celtic languages, whose traces remain in place. Some scholars argue that material culture alone cannot define Celtic identity. Artifacts can be adopted without a full ethnic or linguistic shift. This means that Ireland could exhibit Celtic art and language without being fully Celtic in origin. Celtic identity may have been adopted selectively by elite groups. Latin style and metallurgy indicate participation in continental trends, yet local traditions remain strong and distinct. This selective adoption challenges the simplistic yes or no answer. Really, Irish chronicles, written centuries later, shape our understanding of the past. They often mix legend, oral history, and political aims. These texts must be read critically to understand cultural identity. The interplay between myth and history complicates the question of Celticness. For example, the Milesians myth presents the Irish as coming from Iberia. Scholars debate how much of this story reflects real migration or symbolic narrative. Ireland's geographical isolation allowed for unique cultural development. At the same time, maritime trade facilitated cross-cultural contact. Celtic influence arrived not as a single wave, but as a network of interactions. Art, language, myth, art, and social organization. Dates about Celtic identity often reflect contemporary cultural constants. Romantic nationalism, colonial interpretations, and modern scholarship shape perspective. As Ireland's past requires balancing archaeology, linguistics, and historical of evidence tells part of the story, but not the whole. Irish experience shows that cultural identity is complex and evolving. Labels like Celtic are useful, but must be applied with nuance. They cannot erase the unique local developments in Ireland. Ultimately, Irish identity, as the result of millennia of interaction, adaptation, and innovation. Ireland preserves traces of pre-Celtic, Celtic, and early medieval influences. Language and myth reveal both continuity and change. Historians continue to debate the degree to which Ireland is Celtic. This debate highlights the importance of evidence, interpretation, and perspective. Viral challenges simple categories of ethnicity or culture. Its history demonstrates that identity is not fixed but negotiated over time. By studying Ireland, we gain insight into the fluidity of cultural and linguistic labels. Also understand how later generations interpret and sometimes mythologize the past. Story of Irish Celtic identity is both compelling and complex. It invites us to consider the layers of history, migration, and cultural exchange. The Irish case illustrates how local innovation interacts with broader continental trends. It shows the importance of context when defining cultural category. Ethnic influence in Ireland is undeniable, but not uniform or totally. Irish society blended imported ideas with indigenous practices. This blending created a unique cultural landscape that endures to the present. Modern Ireland celebrates its Celtic heritage while recognizing its distinctive past. Understanding this balance deepens our appreciation of Irish history and identity.